Welcome to the KPC Smart Money Podcast with Kevin and Karen Chris. So today, last couple of weeks we talked about non-financial things. We talked about going to Ecuador and Cuba and what that was like, and we hope you enjoyed that, those of you who could listen. If you didn't listen, go back and check it out. I think you'll find it very interesting. But today we're going to talk about something financial. We're going to talk about final expense planning. And what does that mean? I had somebody call me the other day, Karen. What made me think about this is they don't have a lot of money, and the kids will probably wind up with the house and not much else. But they said, one thing we want to make sure of, we don't want to be a burden to our children when we die. We want to have that already taken care of. We want to have some kind of final expense planning. What does that mean? What are these things that I'm seeing on TV? $9.95 for life insurance for final expenses, cannot be turned down.
Yes.
Right. And so in this case of this one fella, he and his wife have a lot of health history that would preclude them from getting a decent rate on life insurance. Right. So final expense. Why don't you start off with what we did for the funeral, prepaid funeral. Tell us about that.
Yeah, there's two ways to cover final expense. So what you're seeing on TV is the concept of let's just get a small life insurance policy so that when you die, you will have this money, and hopefully your kids or whoever is responsible for you can take the life insurance proceeds and pay for a funeral. And Kevin already mentioned one of the problems with that is, well, what if you can't get life insurance? Maybe you've got some health issues. Now, the other way to do this is called pre-planned funeral. And Kevin and I chose to do the pre-planned funeral route for multiple reasons. A pre-planned funeral is exactly what it sounds like. You are paying up front into a network of funeral homes. You are determining ahead of time, do you want to buy a plot of land? Do you want a casket? Do you want to be cremated? And you're paying for it, again, up front. But here's the thing. You're paying for it at today's dollars. And if you look at how funeral costs increase decade to decade, they are coming close to doubling every 10 years. And so in my CPA brain, here's what I'm thinking. You mean I can buy and pay for my funeral at today's dollars, and I expect to live a good long life and it's paid for. I don't have to be exposed to the expense 30, 40 plus years from now. Sign me up. Okay. That was my opinion on it. But some of the benefits that we really liked, you have a network of funeral homes that participate, because a lot of us, we don't know that we're going to continue to be living in the area that you are when you're thinking about funeral arrangements. You don't know what life is going to bring you, but with this network, it doesn't matter because you've got a network of funeral homes all over the country. Things like, well, what happens if you get in an accident or you happen to pass away and you're not in the country? Well, they will bring you back. And we can actually get to the level of detail where we can plan what a reception would look like, and we get the facilities for free if you decide to have a celebration of life or an actual funeral or something like that. But I like the fact that none of this responsibility will ever go to our kids. They won't be picking out a casket. Do you know? Usually that's a very emotional time. And you just lost a loved one, and then this funeral home is throwing all your costs. I just went through this with my dad, and it's complicated. I mean, the funeral home gives you an itemized list of insane stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you don't want to go cheap because it's your mom or dad, right?
Exactly. And so all of those decisions do not have to be made any longer by our children. They're all documented. They are all paid for. So when talking about this, final expense thing, if your option is pay for the rest of your life, even if it's not a lot, for a term policy, which is called a final expense plan, when you've got the expenses of funeral costs increasing as much as they are, well, I'm going to tell you the death benefit probably on most of those life insurance policies, they're not going up. So if you go buy one and it's $10,000 today and you live another 15, 20 years, what's that really going to pay for?
Yeah, right.
Not a whole lot versus I'm going to pay for it up front in today's dollars, have a whole network of homes and facilities and copies of death certificates and all of that. I personally feel that going the pre-planned funeral route is smarter, make sure that there's no burden left on your family whatsoever, and you're paying for it in today's dollars.
Karen, well, you paid cash for us, and it was a lot less expensive than, if we waited till we were 90, right? Obviously, because of inflation and whatnot. But we paid cash up front. Was there payment plans if you would have asked?
Yeah, there are payment plans. And, and if you're interested in this at all, we work with a wonderful woman who I just think is the consummate professional. She has been doing this for decades. She is very clear in the options that are available to you and the financing that's available to you. But, Kevin, we did that almost 10 years ago. And I'm looking at the cost that we paid 10 years ago versus the cost that we just went through for my dad's funeral, which was out in a lovely remote area of Illinois. We're not talking even about a downtown area. And it was it was done very well, but it was a simple celebration of life and ceremony. And Kevin, just to get back to that doubling, what it cost just for my dad's was just about 2 times what we paid for our individual pre-planned funeral.
Yeah, so you got to understand, Karen, is that she doesn't do anything that doesn't save you money. One of the things I love about my wife is she is frugal. So anyway, but I don't know if they do it. You don't hear about it as much anymore, Karen, but there were some insurance-backed prepaid funerals where the money that you paid went to an insurance company that would actually in turn pay for the funeral later. So, but the one that we have is not insurance-backed. We just paid a certain amount up front, and I guess they'll use that money and invest it however they do. But so now let's get into the ones that you see on TV. Okay, so when you see $9.95 a month, you cannot be turned down. Let me translate what that means. Okay, it's $9.95 per unit, what they call a unit. Now that unit could be $1,000. That unit could be $5,000, $10,000. That unit is going to vary based on your age. And if they say you cannot be turned down, there usually is some limited underwriting. There might be 10 questions or 15 questions that they ask you. If you said that you had a heart attack or you had a stroke or, you weigh 400 pounds or something to that effect, your $9.95 per unit is not going to give you as much per unit. So if you figure out what it's going to cost to bury you, and it's $9.95 per unit, can't be turned down, and that unit gives you $1,000, and the average funeral is what? Probably, with burial, casket,
11 to 12,000 for a simple one.
Right. So you'd need
that's cremation, a casket and everything. Now you're talking serious money.
Okay, so say it's 20,000. All right. So you'd need 20 units in today's dollars. So if you're buying a final expense plan and you live another 20 years, and you get it? So you'd have to buy, in that case, 40 units at $9.95. That's $400 a month to maybe get $20,000 worth of coverage. So you just have to be careful. You got to read the fine print. Now, of course, if you're still in pretty good health, there's final expense plans that are basically just a long-term insurance or a whole life type policy that when you die, you're going to get a death benefit and the kids will be the beneficiary and they can use that money to for your final expenses.
But now realize with these life insurances, you don't get the money the next day so that you can pay for the funeral. When you get a death benefit payout on life insurance, it's going to be a minimum of 30 to 60 days after you have a death certificate and all that kind of stuff. So even with the life insurance type policies, you're not getting that cash in time in any way, shape, or form in order to plan a funeral. So we hope that cleared up a few questions on how do you take care of final expense? How can you protect your loved ones from making some really difficult and potentially expensive decisions when you're gone? My preference is to make sure that is all taken care of so that my kids don't have to deal with anything. And of course, if you have any questions, reach out to us. You can call us at 877-KPC-PLAN. Or you can go to our primary website, KPC Financial Solutions. We'd love to help you. And hey,
.com.
And while you're out there, we've got a HUG file. HUG stands for Help You Grieve. It is a checklist of things that you really can and should put together for whatever loved one is taking over when you are gone. Because I know people hate to talk about this, but it is going to happen 100% guaranteed, okay? So, thanks for listening this week. We hope you join us next week. You're listening to Kevin and Karen Christ of the KPC Smart Money Podcast. Have a blessed week.
You've been listening to the KPC Smart Money Podcast with Kevin and Karen Christ. To listen to more episodes, visit kpcsmartmoney.com. You can also find the KPC Smart Money Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher.
KPC Financial Solutions is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through KPC Financial Solutions, LLC, a registered investment company. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any reference to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. KPC Financial Solutions is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by KPC Financial Solutions. Hypothetical examples have been provided for illustrative purposes only. It does not represent a real-life scenario and should not be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation.